Question 1. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly seeking to streamline their content processing workflows within IBM Content Manager V8. 5. To improve operational efficiency and reduce costs. As a solution designer, you are tasked with optimizing the ingestion and retrieval processes for a financial services client. The client has expressed a strong desire for faster turnaround times for document processing and immediate access to archived information. However, the client operates under strict financial regulations that mandate specific data retention periods and detailed audit trails for all financial documents. Which of the following approaches best balances the client's desire for process optimization with their stringent regulatory obligations? Option A. Implement a new automated content classification engine that prioritizes speed of ingestion and configure retention policies to align with the shortest legally permissible retention periods to facilitate faster data purging. Option B. Introduce a tiered storage strategy that moves older, less frequently accessed content to lower-cost storage tiers without a thorough review of specific regulatory retention mandates for each content type to reduce overall storage costs and improve retrieval times for active content. Option C. Focus exclusively on optimizing the indexing and search functionalities to ensure rapid retrieval, assuming that ingestion speed is less critical for regulatory compliance as long as the data is eventually accessible. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of existing content lifecycle policies and audit trail requirements, engaging with the client's compliance and legal departments to identify optimization opportunities that do not compromise regulatory adherence, and then propose phased implementation with rigorous testing. Correct answer is A. Implement a new automated content classification engine that prioritizes speed of ingestion and configure retention policies to align with the shortest legally permissible retention periods to facilitate faster data purging. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient content processing with the strict adherence to regulatory requirements for data retention and auditability within IBM Content Manager V8. 5. The solution designer must understand how process optimization impacts compliance and the potential risks associated with overlooking these implications. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing regulatory framework and its implications on content lifecycle management before implementing any optimization. This ensures that any changes made to the content processing workflow do not inadvertently lead to noncompliance with data retention policies, audit trail requirements, or data privacy regulations. By involving compliance officers and conducting impact assessments, the solution designer demonstrates a commitment to responsible and ethical system design, safeguarding the organization against legal penalties and reputational damage. This proactive approach aligns with the principles of good governance and risk management inherent in regulated industries. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering regulatory impact is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a significant ethical and regulatory lapse. Specifically, it could lead to the premature deletion of content that is legally mandated for retention, violating data retention laws. It could also compromise the integrity of audit trails, making it impossible to reconstruct content history for compliance or legal purposes, thus failing to meet auditability requirements. Furthermore, if sensitive data is involved, inadequate processing could lead to breaches of data privacy regulations, such as those governing personal identifiable information. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the regulatory landscape. Identify all applicable laws, regulations, and internal policies governing content management and data retention. 2. Assess current processes. Document existing content workflows and identify bottlenecks or inefficiencies. 3. Identify optimization opportunities. Brainstorm potential improvements that could enhance efficiency. 4. Conduct impact assessments. Critically evaluate how each proposed optimization might affect regulatory compliance, data integrity, and auditability. This should involve consultation with legal and compliance teams. 5. Prioritize compliance. Ensure that any optimization strategy explicitly incorporates and maintains adherence to all regulatory requirements. 6. Implement and monitor. Deploy changes incrementally and establish robust monitoring mechanisms to detect any compliance deviations. Question 2. The control framework reveals that the current content ingestion process in IBM Content Manager v8.5 is experiencing significant delays, impacting the timely availability of critical business documents for regulatory review. As a solution designer, which optimization strategy would best address this challenge while ensuring compliance? Option A. Implement a multi-threaded indexing service to parallelize the processing of content metadata and full-text indexing during ingestion. Option B. Focus solely on improving the user interface for content upload to make the process appear faster to end users. Option C. Temporarily disable content validation checks during the ingestion phase to expedite the loading of new documents. Option D. Increase the storage allocation for the content repository without addressing the underlying processing bottlenecks. The correct answer is A. Implement a multi-threaded indexing service to parallelize the processing of content metadata and full-text indexing during ingestion. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management system design, balancing the need for efficient content retrieval with the imperative to maintain data integrity and compliance. The professional challenge lies in understanding how process optimization, specifically in the context of IBM Content Manager v8.5, can impact regulatory adherence and operational effectiveness. Careful judgment is required to select a solution that not only improves performance, but also safeguards against potential compliance breaches. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core requirements of process optimization within the IBM Content Manager v8.5 framework, while adhering to the implicit regulatory expectation of data integrity and auditability. By focusing on optimizing the indexing process, the solution designer ensures that content remains discoverable and accessible, which is crucial for regulatory compliance and business operations. This approach aligns with the principles of efficient data management and supports the overall goal of a robust content management system. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness in content ingestion would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to data corruption or incomplete metadata, directly violating regulatory requirements for accurate record-keeping and audit trails. Another incorrect approach, such as bypassing validation checks to accelerate processing, would introduce significant risks of non-compliance and data integrity issues, making the system unreliable and potentially exposing the organization to legal and financial penalties. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on user interface enhancements without addressing underlying content processing inefficiencies, fails to achieve true process optimization and neglects critical back-end operations that impact compliance and performance. Professionals should approach such situations by first thoroughly understanding the regulatory landscape applicable to the content being managed. This involves identifying specific requirements for data retention, access control, auditability, and integrity. Subsequently, they should analyze the existing content management processes, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement. The selection of optimization strategies should then be evaluated against both performance gains and their impact on regulatory compliance. A structured decision-making process involves 1. Defining clear objectives, 2. Identifying potential solutions, 3. Assessing each solution against technical feasibility, performance benefits, and regulatory compliance, and 4. Selecting the solution that offers the optimal balance of these factors. Question 3. Investigation of process optimization for IBM Content Manager v8.5 within a financial services institution requires a solution designer to propose a strategy for improving content retrieval times and reducing storage costs. The proposed strategy must ensure continued adherence to stringent financial regulations regarding data retention, audit trails, and data privacy. Which of the following approaches best aligns with these requirements? Option A. Focus solely on user interface enhancements to make content searching appear faster, while deferring any analysis of back-end storage or retention policies until after the user experience improvements are deployed. Option B. Immediately implement a new, advanced compression algorithm across all stored content and deploy a more aggressive content auto-deletion policy based on user feedback about perceived data clutter. Option C. Automate the content ingestion process using a generic workflow engine without first analyzing existing content types, retention schedules, or regulatory requirements for metadata. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive audit of current content access patterns and storage utilization. Establish baseline performance metrics. Engage key business and compliance stakeholders to define optimization goals, and then implement phased changes with rigorous testing and ongoing monitoring. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive audit of current content access patterns and storage utilization. Establish baseline performance metrics. Engage key business and compliance stakeholders to define optimization goals, and then implement phased changes with rigorous testing and ongoing monitoring. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, optimizing processes to meet evolving business needs while adhering to strict regulatory compliance. The core difficulty lies in balancing the desire for efficiency and user experience improvements with the non-negotiable requirements of data integrity, auditability, and retention mandated by relevant regulations. A solution designer must possess a deep understanding of both the technical capabilities of IBM Content Manager V8, 5, and the specific legal and regulatory landscape governing content management within the designated jurisdiction. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven, and compliant methodology. By first establishing clear performance metrics and baselines, the designer can objectively measure the impact of any proposed changes. Engaging stakeholders ensures that the optimization efforts align with business objectives and user needs, preventing the introduction of solutions that might be technically sound but operationally disruptive or non-compliant. The subsequent phased implementation and rigorous testing, coupled with ongoing monitoring, allow for controlled improvements and immediate identification of any deviations from compliance or performance targets. This approach directly addresses the regulatory imperative for auditable processes and demonstrable compliance. Each incorrect approach carries significant regulatory and ethical risks. Implementing changes without establishing baselines or measuring impact is a failure to demonstrate due diligence and accountability, which are fundamental ethical and often regulatory requirements. It can lead to unintended consequences, such as data loss, performance degradation, or the introduction of non-compliance, without a clear understanding of the root cause or the extent of the problem. Relying solely on user feedback without objective data or regulatory review can lead to solutions that are subjectively preferred but objectively non-compliant or inefficient. This bypasses the necessary checks and balances for ensuring data integrity and adherence to legal obligations. Automating processes without a thorough understanding of the existing workflow and its regulatory implications is a direct violation of the principle of least privilege and can inadvertently create security vulnerabilities or compliance gaps. It assumes that automation inherently leads to improvement without verifying its suitability within the regulated environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the regulatory landscape. Identify all applicable laws, regulations, and industry guidelines relevant to content management and data handling in the specific jurisdiction. 2. Define clear objectives. Articulate what optimization means in the context of the business and regulatory requirements. This includes defining key performance indicators, KPI, and compliance metrics. 3. Conduct a thorough assessment. Analyze current processes, identify bottlenecks, and gather data on performance and compliance. 4. Involve stakeholders. Engage with business users, IT, legal, and compliance teams to gather requirements and ensure buy-in. 5. Design and prototype. Develop potential solutions, considering their impact on performance, usability, and compliance. 6. Test rigorously. Implement pilot programs and conduct comprehensive testing to validate functionality, performance, and compliance. 7. Implement and monitor. Deploy solutions in a phased manner and establish ongoing monitoring to track performance and compliance. 8. Document everything. Maintain detailed records of all assessments, design decisions, testing results, and implementation steps for auditability. Question 4. What factors determine the most effective approach to optimizing content processing workflows within IBM Content Manager V8? 5. Considering both operational efficiency and adherence to U.S. regulatory frameworks for data management. Option A. The sole focus on reducing the time taken for content ingestion and initial indexing to accelerate data availability. Option B, the implementation of aggressive data deduplication and compression techniques across all content repositories to minimize storage footprint. Option C, the prioritization of user interface enhancements to improve the perceived speed of content access, irrespective of backend processing. Option D, the comprehensive analysis of the content lifecycle, including ingestion, retrieval, retention, and disposition, in conjunction with the specific requirements of applicable U.S. regulations and the capabilities of IBM Content Manager V8. 5. The correct answer is D. The comprehensive analysis of the content lifecycle, including ingestion, retrieval, retention, and disposition, in conjunction with the specific requirements of applicable U.S. regulations and the capabilities of IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, optimizing processes for efficiency and compliance without compromising data integrity or user experience. The professional challenge lies in balancing competing demands, such as reducing processing time, minimizing resource utilization, and adhering to strict regulatory requirements for data retention and auditability, all within the context of IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Careful judgment is required to select the most effective optimization strategies that align with both business objectives and the specific constraints of the chosen technology and its regulatory environment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic understanding of the content lifecycle and its integration with business workflows. By analyzing the entire process, from ingestion to archival and disposition, and considering the specific regulatory framework governing the data, which for this exam is assumed to be U.S.-based, focusing on regulations like HIPAA for healthcare or SOX for financial data, requiring robust audit trails and retention policies, a solution designer can identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Implementing optimizations that enhance search performance, streamline check-in/checkout, or automate metadata application directly contributes to faster access, reduced manual effort, and improved compliance by ensuring data is managed according to defined policies. This aligns with the principles of good governance and risk management inherent in regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing storage costs by implementing aggressive data compression without considering the impact on retrieval times or the potential for data degradation would be a regulatory and ethical failure. This could violate regulations requiring timely access to records for audits or legal discovery. Similarly, an approach that bypasses established security protocols or audit logging mechanisms to speed up processing would be a significant ethical and regulatory breach, undermining data integrity and accountability. Another incorrect approach might be to optimize only the ingestion phase, neglecting the critical downstream processes of retrieval, retention, and disposition, leading to an unbalanced system that creates new problems later in the content lifecycle and potentially violates retention mandates. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough discovery phase to understand current processes, identify pain points, and map them against business requirements and regulatory obligations. This should be followed by a design phase where potential optimization strategies are evaluated based on their impact on performance, scalability, security, and compliance. Proof of concept testing and iterative refinement are crucial to validate the chosen approach before full implementation. Professionals must always consider the why behind each optimization, ensuring it serves a clear purpose that aligns with the overall solution goals and adheres to all applicable legal and ethical standards. Question 5. When evaluating process optimization for IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Which approach best balances efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain regulatory compliance for audit trails and data retention? Option A. Designing an optimized content lifecycle management process that incorporates automated audit logging for all content access and modification events, and dynamically applies retention policies based on predefined regulatory classifications, ensuring all changes are auditable and compliant. Option B. Prioritizing a rapid content retrieval system that deduplicates content aggressively and removes redundant metadata to speed up search, with a plan to address audit trail and retention requirements in a subsequent, separate project. Option C. Focusing solely on reducing storage costs by implementing a highly compressed storage format for all content, assuming that regulatory requirements for access and auditability can be met through separate, ad hoc retrieval mechanisms. Option D. Implementing a streamlined content ingestion workflow that reduces the number of steps and automatically archives older content based on a simplified date-based rule, without explicit review of specific regulatory retention schedules. The correct answer is D. Implementing a streamlined content ingestion workflow that reduces the number of steps and automatically archives older content based on a simplified date-based rule, without explicit review of specific regulatory retention schedules. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the need for efficient content processing with adherence to established regulatory requirements for data retention and auditability. The professional challenge lies in identifying the optimal approach that satisfies both business objectives and legal obligations without introducing unnecessary complexity or risk. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen process optimization does not inadvertently compromise data integrity, accessibility for compliance purposes, or the ability to demonstrate adherence to regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the regulatory framework governing content lifecycle management. Specifically, it emphasizes the need to integrate compliance requirements, such as audit trails and retention policies, directly into the design of the optimized process. This proactive integration ensures that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of legal obligations, thereby minimizing the risk of non-compliance, potential fines, and reputational damage. It aligns with the principle of compliance by design, which is a cornerstone of responsible information governance. An incorrect approach that overlooks or inadequately addresses regulatory requirements poses significant ethical and regulatory failures. For instance, implementing a process optimization that bypasses or simplifies audit logging mechanisms would violate regulations requiring comprehensive audit trails for content access and modification. This failure could lead to an inability to reconstruct events for legal or investigative purposes, resulting in severe penalties. Similarly, an approach that shortens retention periods without a proper legal or regulatory basis would contravene data retention mandates, exposing the organization to legal repercussions and data loss risks. Another failure would be optimizing for speed at the expense of data immutability, where required by regulation, leading to potential data tampering issues. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of proposed optimizations against the relevant regulatory landscape. This includes 1. Identifying all applicable regulations and guidelines related to content management, data retention, and auditability. 2. Assessing the impact of each proposed optimization on compliance requirements. 3. Prioritizing solutions that demonstrably maintain or enhance compliance while achieving efficiency goals. 4. Consulting with legal and compliance officers to validate the chosen approach. 5. Documenting the rationale for the chosen process and its compliance implications. Question 6. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent increase in the average response time for content retrieval operations over the past week, particularly during peak user activity hours. This trend is not associated with any recent code deployments or infrastructure changes. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate next step for the IBM Content Manager V8.5 Solution Designer? Option A. Analyze system logs and performance metrics to identify specific content retrieval patterns, user query characteristics, or potential resource contention that correlates with the increased response times. Option B. Recommend an immediate hardware upgrade for the content repository servers, assuming the current infrastructure is no longer adequate. Option C. Advise users to reduce the complexity of their search queries and limit concurrent retrieval requests until the issue can be investigated. Option D. Immediately implement a system-wide cache refresh to clear potential stale data that might be impacting retrieval performance. The correct answer is A. Analyze system logs and performance metrics to identify specific content retrieval patterns, user query characteristics, or potential resource contention that correlates with the increased response times. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient content management processes with the imperative to adhere to IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Solution designer best practices and potential regulatory compliance considerations, even if not explicitly stated as a direct regulatory requirement for this exam. The monitoring system's output indicates a potential bottleneck or inefficiency that, if left unaddressed, could impact system performance, user experience, and potentially lead to data integrity issues or audit trail discrepancies in a regulated environment. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause and implement an appropriate solution without introducing new problems or violating design principles. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic, data-driven investigation into the identified performance anomaly. By analyzing the specific metrics and correlating them with system events, the solution designer can pinpoint the exact area of inefficiency. This methodical approach ensures that the implemented solution directly addresses the problem, minimizes the risk of unintended consequences, and aligns with the principles of robust system design and optimization inherent in IBM Content Manager V8. 5. It prioritizes understanding the why behind the performance dip before proposing a fix, which is crucial for long-term system health and maintainability. Each incorrect approach represents specific regulatory or ethical failures in a professional context. Proposing a broad, untested configuration change without understanding the root cause is a failure of due diligence. Risks introducing new performance issues, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities, which could have significant implications if the content managed is subject to regulatory oversight, e.g., financial records, healthcare data. Similarly, ignoring the anomaly or assuming it will resolve itself is a failure to uphold professional responsibility for system integrity and performance. This inaction could lead to escalating problems, user dissatisfaction, and potential non-compliance with service-level agreements or internal governance policies. Implementing a solution based on anecdotal evidence or a quick fix without proper analysis demonstrates a lack of commitment to evidence-based problem-solving and can lead to recurring issues, eroding trust in the system and the solution designer's capabilities. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Acknowledging and documenting the observed anomaly. 2. Initiating a structured investigation using available monitoring tools and system logs. 3. Correlating performance metrics with specific system activities or changes. 4. Formulating hypotheses about the root cause. 5. Testing hypotheses through controlled analysis or targeted diagnostics. 6. Developing and implementing a solution based on validated findings. 7. Verifying the effectiveness of the solution and monitoring for recurrence. This systematic approach ensures that solutions are effective, efficient, and maintain the integrity and performance of the IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Environment. Question 7. Quality control measures reveal that the proposed IBM Content Manager V8 5 solution design for a financial services firm has conflicting priorities between achieving immediate operational efficiencies and meeting stringent upcoming regulatory compliance deadlines for data retention and audit trails. The solution designer must recommend an implementation strategy. Option A. Design and implement a single, comprehensive solution that attempts to address all regulatory, efficiency, and user experience requirements concurrently from the initial deployment. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of features that offer the most significant immediate operational efficiencies, with a plan to address regulatory compliance in a subsequent, less time-sensitive phase. Option C. Focus exclusively on building the most robust and technically advanced regulatory compliance framework, deferring any considerations for operational efficiency or user interface improvements until after the compliance audit. Option D. Implement a phased approach, prioritizing the core regulatory compliance features in the initial rollout, followed by iterative enhancements for operational efficiencies and user experience based on feedback. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased approach, prioritizing the core regulatory compliance features in the initial rollout, followed by iterative enhancements for operational efficiencies and user experience based on feedback. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, where differing stakeholder priorities can lead to conflicting requirements. Challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for regulatory compliance with the long-term strategic goals of business efficiency and user adoption. A solution designer must navigate these competing interests, ensuring that the chosen approach not only meets legal obligations, but also provides tangible business value and is practical for end users. Failure to adequately address any of these facets can result in a solution that is either non-compliant, inefficient, or rejected by its intended users. Correct approach analysis. Prioritizing a phased implementation that first addresses the most critical regulatory requirements, followed by iterative enhancements for business efficiency and user experience, represents best professional practice. This approach aligns with the principle of least privilege in data handling and compliance, ensuring that the most sensitive aspects are secured first. From a regulatory standpoint, this demonstrates a proactive and responsible approach to compliance, minimizing risk of penalties. Ethically, it prioritizes the protection of sensitive information and adherence to legal mandates, which is a fundamental duty. This phased approach also allows for early validation of compliance controls and provides a foundation for subsequent improvements, fostering user trust and facilitating adoption. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on immediate business efficiency gains without a robust plan for regulatory compliance is a significant regulatory failure. It exposes the organization to potential legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust from customers and regulators. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for legal obligations and the protection of data. Implementing a comprehensive, all-encompassing solution from the outset that attempts to address all regulatory, efficiency, and user experience requirements simultaneously, without proper phasing, is often impractical and can lead to scope creep, budget overruns, and delays. While well-intentioned, this approach can falter in execution, potentially compromising the effectiveness of both compliance and efficiency features due to the complexity of managing all aspects at once. It risks overwhelming users and IT resources, leading to a less successful overall implementation. Ignoring user feedback and focusing exclusively on technical and regulatory aspects, even if compliant and efficient, is an ethical failure in user advocacy. A solution that is not adopted or is difficult to use will ultimately fail to deliver its intended benefits, regardless of its technical merits or compliance status. This can lead to workarounds that bypass intended controls, creating new compliance risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, iterative approach to solution design. This involves 1. Identifying and prioritizing all stakeholder requirements, with a clear emphasis on regulatory mandates. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to understand the potential impact of noncompliance and operational inefficiencies. 3. Developing a phased implementation plan that addresses the highest priority risks, typically regulatory, first. 4. Incorporating feedback loops with all stakeholder groups throughout the design and implementation process. 5. Continuously evaluating the solution against business objectives, user needs, and evolving regulatory landscapes. This structured decision-making process ensures that critical requirements are met, risks are mitigated, and the solution delivers sustainable value. Question 8. Governance review demonstrates that the current content management solution for financial records is not adequately addressing the mandated retention periods and audit trail requirements stipulated by the relevant financial regulatory bodies. As the IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution designer, which approach best ensures ongoing compliance and efficient data management? Option A. Configure IBM Content Manager V8.5 to retain all financial records indefinitely to avoid any risk of premature deletion, regardless of actual regulatory requirements or storage implications. Option B. Implement a comprehensive retention policy within IBM Content Manager V8.5 that defines specific retention periods and automated disposition actions for different categories of financial records, ensuring these policies are integrated with the system's lifecycle management. Option C. Rely on external archival services to manage retention, with no specific configuration or policy defined within IBM Content Manager V8.5 itself. Option D. Establish a manual checklist for business users to periodically review and flag financial records for potential deletion once their perceived retention period has passed. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive retention policy within IBM Content Manager V8.5 that defines specific retention periods and automated disposition actions for different categories of financial records, ensuring these policies are integrated with the system's lifecycle management. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solutions, where the need for efficient data retrieval clashes with the regulatory requirement for long-term data integrity and auditability. The solution designer must balance the immediate operational needs of business users with the overarching compliance obligations, which often involve specific retention periods, access controls, and audit trails. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant IBM Content Manager V8 5 features and best practices within the context of these often competing demands, ensuring that the chosen approach is both technically sound and legally defensible. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes the establishment of a robust retention policy that is directly integrated with the content management system's lifecycle management capabilities. This ensures that content is automatically managed according to defined retention schedules, minimizing the risk of premature deletion or noncompliance. IBM Content Manager V8 5 offers features for defining and enforcing retention policies, including the ability to set specific retention periods and disposition actions, e.g., archive, delete. By configuring these policies, the solution designer ensures that the system itself enforces compliance, reducing manual intervention and the potential for human error. This aligns with the principle of designing for compliance and is a best practice for managing regulated content. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying solely on manual processes for managing content retention and disposition. This is professionally unacceptable because it introduces a high risk of human error, leading to potential noncompliance with retention regulations. Manual processes are prone to oversight, inconsistent application, and are difficult to audit effectively, which is a critical failure in regulated environments. Another incorrect approach is to implement a retention policy that is overly aggressive, leading to the premature deletion of content that may still be required for legal or business purposes. This approach fails to adequately consider the full life cycle of the content and the potential for future discovery or audit needs. It represents a failure to understand and apply the nuances of retention requirements, potentially leading to regulatory penalties or loss of critical business information. A third incorrect approach is to configure the system to retain all content indefinitely without a defined disposition strategy. While seemingly safe from a deletion perspective, this is professionally unsound as it leads to uncontrolled data growth, increased storage costs, and makes it significantly more difficult to locate relevant information when needed. Furthermore, many regulations have specific requirements for data minimization and timely disposition, which this approach ignores. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with designing content management solutions must adopt a proactive and integrated approach to governance and compliance. This involves understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the content being managed, identifying the relevant features within the chosen content management system, IBM Content Manager V8 5 in this case, that support these requirements, and designing the solution to automate compliance wherever possible. The decision-making process should involve close collaboration with legal, compliance, and business stakeholders to ensure all requirements are understood and addressed. Prioritizing automated lifecycle management, robust audit trails, and clearly defined retention and disposition policies are key to building a compliant and effective content management solution. Question 9. The efficiency study reveals that a key business unit stakeholder is requesting a direct, unfiltered export of all content associated with a specific project, bypassing standard archival and retention policies to facilitate an immediate external review. As the IBM Content Manager V8 5 solution designer, what is the most professional and compliant course of action? Option A. Immediately provide the stakeholder with direct database access to extract the requested content, as their urgency is paramount for the external review. Option B. Inform the stakeholder that their request cannot be fulfilled due to existing archival and retention policies and suggest they wait for the standard reporting cycle. Option C. Create a custom script to bypass all security and audit controls to deliver the content directly to the stakeholder's requested location, prioritizing speed and stakeholder satisfaction. Option D. Engage with the stakeholder to understand the exact nature and scope of the external review, and then design a compliant export mechanism that adheres to IBM Content Manager V8 5. Data governance principles and any applicable regulatory requirements, potentially involving a temporary, auditable data extract. The correct answer is D. Engage with the stakeholder to understand the exact nature and scope of the external review, and then design a compliant export mechanism that adheres to IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Data governance principles and any applicable regulatory requirements, potentially involving a temporary, auditable data extract. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the solution designer must balance the immediate needs of a key stakeholder with the long-term integrity and compliance of the content management system. The stakeholder's request, while seemingly straightforward, could introduce risks related to data governance, auditability, and potentially regulatory noncompliance if not handled with due diligence. The designer's judgment is critical in ensuring that any solution adheres to established IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Best practices and any applicable regulatory frameworks relevant to the solution's deployment jurisdiction. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the implications of the stakeholder's request within the context of the IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Architecture and relevant regulatory guidelines. This involves a systematic evaluation of the impact on data retention policies, access controls, audit trails, and potential security vulnerabilities. By engaging with the stakeholder to clarify requirements and exploring alternative compliance solutions, the designer upholds professional integrity and ensures the solution's long-term viability and adherence to governance standards. This proactive and consultative method minimizes the risk of future compliance issues and builds trust with stakeholders by demonstrating a commitment to robust and responsible system design. An incorrect approach that bypasses established change control processes and directly implements the stakeholder's request without proper assessment would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to the introduction of unauthorized data handling practices, circumventing audit logs, or violating data retention mandates, all of which could result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, such as outright refusal without offering compliant alternatives, demonstrates a lack of customer service and problem-solving skills, potentially alienating stakeholders and hindering project progress. It fails to leverage the designer's expertise to find a mutually beneficial solution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, fully understand the stakeholder's request and the underlying business need. Second, assess the request against the existing system architecture, design principles, and all relevant regulatory and compliance requirements. Third, identify potential risks and impacts. Fourth, consult with relevant parties, e.g., compliance officers, legal counsel, other technical experts if necessary. Fifth, propose compliance solutions, explaining the rationale and trade-offs. Finally, document all decisions and communications thoroughly. Question 10. Process analysis reveals that the marketing department requires a new content management solution to streamline their campaign asset creation and distribution workflow. While this department has specific functional needs, the organization has a general policy for enterprise-wide content governance and compliance that must be adhered to. What is the most appropriate initial step for the IBM Content Manager V8? 5. Solution designer. Option A. Immediately begin designing a solution tailored to the marketing department's workflow, assuming their needs are representative of broader organizational requirements. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of the most advanced content management features available in IBM Content Manager V8. 5. To ensure the marketing department has a cutting-edge solution. Option C. Engage with representatives from all relevant business units and the compliance department to understand their content management needs and governance requirements before designing a solution for the marketing department. Option D. Focus solely on the technical aspects of the marketing department's request, deferring any broader governance or compliance discussions until after the initial solution is deployed. The correct answer is C. Engage with representatives from all relevant business units and the compliance department to understand their content management needs and governance requirements before designing a solution for the marketing department. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design. balancing the immediate needs of a specific business unit with the broader organizational strategy and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in navigating competing priorities, ensuring that a solution designed for one department doesn't inadvertently create risks or inefficiencies for others, or violate established governance policies. Careful judgment is required to identify the most impactful and compliant path forward. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic understanding of content governance and compliance requirements across the entire organization before committing to a specific technical solution. This aligns with the principles of responsible information management, which mandate that content solutions should support overarching business objectives and adhere to all applicable regulations. By engaging stakeholders from various departments in the compliance team, the designer ensures that the proposed solution is not only functional for the marketing department, but also secure, auditable, and compliant with all relevant IBM Content Manager V8. 5 guidelines and any implied regulatory frameworks that would govern enterprise content management in a typical business context, e.g., data privacy, record retention. This proactive engagement minimizes the risk of costly rework and ensures long-term solution viability. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the marketing department's immediate needs without considering broader implications fails to uphold professional responsibility. This could lead to regulatory or ethical failures by potentially creating a system that does not adequately address data retention policies, audit trails, or access controls required by other departments or external regulations. For instance, if the marketing department's request bypasses established record retention schedules, it could lead to non-compliance with legal obligations. Similarly, implementing a solution without consulting the compliance team might overlook critical security vulnerabilities or data privacy requirements, exposing the organization to significant legal and reputational risks. Another incorrect approach, such as prioritizing a technically elegant but unproven feature without validating its alignment with organizational strategy, risks implementing a solution that is difficult to integrate, maintain, or scale, ultimately failing to deliver long-term value and potentially violating principles of efficient resource allocation. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the stated business need. Second, identify all relevant stakeholders, including end users, IT, legal, compliance, and other business units that might be impacted. Third, conduct a comprehensive review of existing content governance policies, regulatory requirements, and organizational standards. Fourth, evaluate potential solutions against these requirements, prioritizing those that offer the best balance of functionality, compliance, scalability, and cost-effectiveness. Finally, document the decision-making process and communicate the rationale to all stakeholders. Question 11. Benchmark analysis indicates that a specific business unit within a U.S.-based financial services organization requires enhanced capabilities for managing and retrieving customer interaction records, including emails, call logs, and chat transcripts, within the IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Environment. The business unit is eager for a rapid deployment to address immediate operational needs. As the IBM Content Manager V8, 5 solution designer, which approach best balances the business unit's urgency with long-term architectural integrity and U.S. federal regulatory compliance. Option A. Implement a basic content storage solution within IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Deferring all advanced retrieval and compliance features to a future, undefined project. Option B. Recommend a complete overhaul of the IBM Content Manager V8. 5 system to accommodate the new requirements, even if it significantly exceeds the business unit's immediate scope and budget. Option C. Propose a phased implementation strategy that leverages existing IBM Content Manager V8. 5 functionalities and integrates with the enterprise content strategy, ensuring adherence to relevant U.S. federal regulations for financial data retention and audit trails. Option D. Develop a standalone, custom application to meet the immediate needs of the business unit, bypassing the existing IBM Content Manager V8. 5 infrastructure to expedite deployment. The correct answer is C. Propose a phased implementation strategy that leverages existing IBM Content Manager V8. 5 functionalities and integrates with the enterprise content strategy, ensuring adherence to relevant U.S. federal regulations for financial data retention and audit trails. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management projects, balancing the immediate needs of a specific business unit with the broader organizational strategy and regulatory compliance. The solution designer must navigate competing priorities, resource constraints, and the potential for technical debt if short-term solutions are prioritized over long-term architectural integrity. The professional challenge lies in advocating for a solution that is not only functional for the immediate request, but also sustainable, scalable, and compliant with IBM Content Manager V8. 5 best practices and any applicable U.S. federal regulations governing data retention and security. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the business unit's requirements against the existing IBM Content Manager V8. 5 architecture and organizational policies. This includes understanding the specific content types, access patterns, retention requirements, and security mandates. By proposing a phased implementation that leverages existing IBM Content Manager V8, 5 capabilities and aligns with the enterprise content strategy, the solution designer demonstrates best professional practice. This approach ensures that the solution is integrated, maintainable, and adheres to U.S. federal regulations such as those outlined by the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, for federal records management, and potentially industry-specific regulations like HIPAA for healthcare data or SOX for financial data, if applicable. It prioritizes a robust, compliant, and scalable solution over a quick fix. Incorrect approaches analysis. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a custom solution outside of the IBM Content Manager V8 5 framework without a comprehensive impact analysis. This could lead to data silos, increased maintenance overhead, and potential security vulnerabilities, violating the principle of secure and compliant data management. Such an approach might also bypass established change control processes and fail to meet the stringent data retention and audit trail requirements mandated by U.S. federal regulations, leading to significant compliance risks. Another incorrect approach would be to over-engineer a solution that introduces unnecessary complexity and cost without a clear business justification or alignment with the enterprise content strategy. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the business needs and an inability to propose pragmatic, cost-effective solutions, potentially leading to wasted resources and user dissatisfaction. Finally, an approach that ignores the long-term implications of the proposed solution, such as scalability and integration with other enterprise systems, would be professionally unsound. This short-sightedness can result in significant rework and increased costs down the line, failing to meet the organization's evolving content management needs and potentially creating compliance gaps as data volumes grow. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured approach to solution design. This involves 1. Requirements gathering and analysis. Deeply understand the business needs, technical constraints, and regulatory obligations. 2. Architectural alignment. Evaluate proposed solutions against the existing enterprise architecture and content management strategy. 3. Risk assessment. Identify potential technical, security, and compliance risks associated with each proposed approach. 4. Stakeholder communication. Engage with all relevant stakeholders to ensure buy-in and manage expectations. 5. Phased implementation. Prioritize solutions that can be implemented incrementally, allowing for testing and validation at each stage. 6. Regulatory compliance. Ensure all proposed solutions strictly adhere to relevant U.S. federal and industry-specific regulations. Question 12. Quality control measures reveal that a financial services client requires a solution for managing regulatory documents that necessitates a complete, auditable history of all content revisions. The solution must ensure that at any point in time, the exact state of a document as it existed on a specific past date can be retrieved and verified. Which approach best satisfies these stringent regulatory requirements within IBM Content Manager V8? 5. Option A. Configure the system to allow users to directly edit and overwrite existing document content, relying on user-generated metadata fields to manually track revision dates and authors. Option B. Store all document revisions in a separate, external archive system that is not directly integrated with the primary content repository, requiring manual reconciliation for audit purposes. Option C. Utilize a simple file system structure with timestamp folders to manage document versions, bypassing the content management system's versioning capabilities. Option D. Implement content versioning within IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Ensuring that each revision creates a new, distinct version of the document while preserving all previous versions for retrieval and audit. The correct answer is D. Implement content versioning within IBM Content Manager V8. 5. Ensuring that each revision creates a new, distinct version of the document while preserving all previous versions for retrieval and audit. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the need for robust data integrity and auditability with the practical demands of user accessibility and system performance. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the regulatory framework to a specific technical implementation, ensuring compliance without unduly hindering business operations. Careful judgment is required to identify the most appropriate method for handling content revisions that satisfies both legal mandates and stakeholder expectations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core regulatory requirement for maintaining an accurate and auditable history of content changes. IBM Content Manager V8. 5. When configured for versioning, provides a mechanism to preserve previous states of a document. This ensures that at any point in time, a complete and verifiable record of the content's evolution is available, which is crucial for compliance with regulations that mandate data retention and audit trails. This approach aligns with the principle of least privilege and data integrity by ensuring that only authorized modifications are tracked and that the original content remains accessible for auditing purposes. An incorrect approach that involves overriding existing content without retaining previous versions fails to meet regulatory requirements for auditability and historical record-keeping. This creates a significant compliance risk, as it would be impossible to reconstruct the content's history or prove its state at a specific past date. This directly violates principles of data integrity and accountability. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on user-generated metadata to track changes, is insufficient because metadata can be easily altered or lost, and it does not provide a system-level guarantee of content preservation. This approach lacks the robust, system-enforced audit trail mandated by many regulatory frameworks. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory requirements. This involves identifying specific mandates related to data retention, audit trails, and content immutability. Subsequently, they must evaluate the technical capabilities of the chosen content management system, IBM Content Manager V8. 5 in this case, to determine how best to implement solutions that meet these requirements. This includes understanding features like versioning, metadata management, and access controls. Finally, stakeholder input regarding usability and performance should be considered, but never at the expense of fundamental compliance obligations. The design must prioritize regulatory adherence, with usability and performance optimized within those constraints. Question 13. The audit findings indicate that the proposed IBM Content Manager V8. 5 solution design for financial services client does not explicitly detail the mechanisms for automated data disposition after the legally mandated retention periods have expired. The solution designer is aware of the client's industry-specific regulatory obligations regarding data destruction. Which of the following approaches best addresses this critical compliance gap? Option A. Incorporate a disclaimer in the solution documentation stating that the client is solely responsible for ensuring compliance with all data retention and disposition regulations, without providing specific technical controls for disposition within the system. Option B. Implement robust audit trails and logging within IBM Content Manager to track data access and modification, assuming the client will manage disposition through manual processes based on these logs. Option C. Design the solution to include configurable retention policies and automated disposition workflows directly within IBM Content Manager, and proactively consult with the client's legal and compliance departments to validate these configurations against specific regulatory requirements. Option D. Proceed with the current design, advising the client that disposition is an operational concern and outside the scope of the solution design, with a note to review disposition requirements in a future phase. The correct answer is B. Implement robust audit trails and logging within IBM Content Manager to track data access and modification, assuming the client will manage disposition through manual processes based on these logs. Explanation: the audit findings indicate a potential gap in how IBM Content Manager v8.5 solution designs are being evaluated for compliance with data retention and disposition policies. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the solution designer to balance the technical capabilities of IBM Content Manager with the legal and regulatory obligations governing data lifecycle management. The pressure to deliver a functional solution quickly can sometimes overshadow the critical need for robust compliance mechanisms. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the design not only meets business requirements, but also adheres to the strict mandates of data retention and eventual secure disposition, preventing potential legal repercussions and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and integration of the relevant regulatory framework from the outset. By engaging legal counsel and compliance officers, the solution designer ensures that the design explicitly incorporates mechanisms for data retention and disposition that are legally sound and auditable. This proactive engagement mitigates risks by embedding compliance into the core design, rather than attempting to retrofit it later. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and demonstrates a commitment to responsible data stewardship, which is increasingly a regulatory expectation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical feasibility without considering regulatory implications fails to meet professional standards. This could lead to a solution that is technically sound but legally non-compliant, exposing the organization to fines, legal action, and data breach liabilities. Another incorrect approach that relies on assumptions about future regulatory changes or interpretations is also professionally unacceptable. Such an approach introduces significant uncertainty and risk, as it is not grounded in current, enforceable requirements. Third incorrect approach that delegates compliance responsibility entirely to end users without providing clear guidance or technical controls is a failure of due diligence. The solution designer has a professional obligation to ensure the solution itself supports compliance, not to place the entire burden on others who may lack the necessary expertise or tools. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all relevant stakeholders, including legal, compliance, and business units. This framework should then involve a comprehensive review of applicable regulations and internal policies. The design process should iteratively incorporate compliance requirements, with regular validation checkpoints involving legal and compliance experts. When faced with ambiguity, the framework should mandate seeking clarification from legal counsel and documenting the rationale for design decisions based on that guidance. This structured approach ensures that technical solutions are built on a foundation of regulatory adherence and ethical data handling. Question 14. The evaluation methodology shows that a client requires a robust content management solution for sensitive financial documents, necessitating strict adherence to data privacy regulations and audit trails. Two primary technical approaches are being considered. One, leveraging a cutting-edge, cloud-native platform with advanced AI-driven classification, and another utilizing a well-established, on-premises IBM Content Manager v8.5 configuration with custom audit logging, which approach best aligns with the stated requirements and professional best practices for solution design in this regulated industry. Option A, a hybrid approach combining elements of both cloud-native and on-premises solutions, as this offers the most flexibility and allows for leveraging the strengths of each. Option B, the cloud-native platform with AI-driven classification, as its advanced features offer superior efficiency and future-proofing, which are paramount for a forward-thinking financial institution. Option C, the cloud-native platform with AI-driven classification, prioritizing its scalability and potential for cost savings, assuming that regulatory compliance can be retrofitted through vendor assurances. Option D, the on-premises IBM Content Manager v8.5 configuration with custom audit logging, as it provides greater control over data residency and security, and its established audit capabilities are more readily verifiable against financial regulatory requirements. The correct answer is D, the on-premises IBM Content Manager v8.5 configuration with custom audit logging, as it provides greater control over data residency and security, and its established audit capabilities are more readily verifiable against financial regulatory requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in solution design where multiple technical approaches exist, each with potential benefits and drawbacks. The professional challenge lies in selecting the approach that best aligns with the client's specific business needs, regulatory compliance, and long-term strategic goals, rather than simply choosing the most technically advanced or familiar option. Careful judgment is required to balance innovation with practicality and adherence to established guidelines. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the client's context and constraints before committing to a technical solution. This involves a thorough assessment of business requirements, existing infrastructure, security mandates, and data governance policies. By aligning the solution with these factors, the designer ensures not only technical efficacy, but also regulatory compliance and business value. This proactive, client-centric methodology minimizes risks of rework, non-compliance, and ultimately, project failure. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the perceived technical superiority of a new technology without adequate validation against business needs and regulatory requirements is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to solutions that are over-engineered, difficult to integrate, or fail to meet critical compliance obligations. Another incorrect approach, which relies on past successful implementations without considering the unique aspects of the current project, ignores the potential for new risks or the availability of better-suited solutions. This can result in a suboptimal outcome and missed opportunities for innovation. A third incorrect approach, prioritizing cost reduction above all else without a thorough risk assessment, can lead to the selection of solutions that compromise security, scalability, or compliance, ultimately incurring higher costs in the long run due to remediation or penalties. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a deep dive into client requirements and constraints. This should be followed by an objective evaluation of potential solutions against these criteria, considering technical feasibility, scalability, security, compliance, and total cost of ownership. Pilot testing or proof-of-concept phases are crucial for validating assumptions and mitigating risks before full-scale implementation. Regular communication and stakeholder engagement throughout the process ensure alignment and buy-in. Question 15. The assessment process reveals that a financial services client requires an IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution that adheres to strict audit logging regulations. The client has provided a high-level decision-making framework document that emphasizes the need for a complete audit trail of all content modifications, including who made the change, when, and what was changed. However, the document is vague on the specific technical implementation details for audit logging within the content management system. The solution designer must determine the most appropriate approach to configure audit logging to meet these regulatory demands without causing significant performance degradation or excessive storage consumption. Option A. Focus on logging only user login and logout events, assuming that version history within IBM Content Manager will suffice for content modification audits to prioritize system performance and minimize storage. Option B. Implement comprehensive audit logging for all content events, including minor metadata changes and version history, to ensure maximum auditability as per the spirit of the decision-making framework. Option C. Implement a custom logging solution that captures all content interactions at a granular level, bypassing IBM Content Manager's native audit logging to achieve maximum control and detail. Option D. Configure audit logging to capture only major content operations such as creation, deletion, and significant permission changes, relying on version history for less critical modifications to balance performance and storage. Correct answer is B. Implement comprehensive audit logging for all content events, including minor metadata changes and version history, to ensure maximum auditability as per the spirit of the decision-making framework. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the need for robust data integrity and auditability with the practical demands of user accessibility and system performance. In this scenario, the solution designer must navigate the complexities of IBM Content Manager V8.5's audit logging capabilities, ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements without unduly impacting the system's usability. The professional challenge lies in interpreting the specific requirements of the decision-making framework as it applies to audit logging, which often involves a trade-off between the granularity of logged information and the associated storage and performance overhead. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both compliant and practical. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the regulatory landscape and the specific audit requirements before making design decisions. This involves a systematic evaluation of what data must be logged for compliance and auditability, and then designing the logging strategy to capture this essential information efficiently. This aligns with the principles of responsible data management and regulatory adherence, ensuring that the solution can withstand scrutiny and provide a clear audit trail when needed. It demonstrates a proactive and informed approach to compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on minimizing storage costs without a thorough regulatory review would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of due diligence regarding compliance obligations. Regulatory frameworks often mandate specific types of audit information to be retained, and neglecting these requirements can lead to significant legal and financial penalties. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes system performance above all else, leading to insufficient audit logging, is also professionally flawed. This demonstrates a disregard for accountability and transparency, which are critical components of many regulatory mandates. Such an approach could render the system incapable of providing necessary audit information during an investigation or compliance audit. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear definition of regulatory requirements and business needs. This involves consulting relevant documentation, understanding the specific audit trails mandated by applicable laws and industry standards, and then assessing the technical capabilities of IBM Content Manager V8. 5. The next step is to design a logging strategy that meets these requirements while considering performance and storage implications. Iterative testing and validation are crucial to ensure the chosen approach is effective and efficient. This structured process minimizes the risk of non-compliance and ensures a well-reasoned, defensible solution. Question 16. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire from the marketing department to implement a new, highly interactive content visualization dashboard for customer engagement metrics within the next quarter. Concurrently, the legal and compliance teams have raised concerns about the current content retention policies and the auditability of user access logs, requesting immediate enhancements to ensure compliance with upcoming regulatory audits. The project team has limited resources, making it impossible to fully address both requests simultaneously without compromising quality or timelines. As the IBM Content Manager V8, 5 solution designer, which approach best balances these competing demands while upholding professional and regulatory obligations. Option A. Focus solely on the marketing department's visualization dashboard, as it directly impacts revenue generation and customer acquisition, and instruct the legal and compliance teams to manage their audit preparation using existing system capabilities. Option B. Escalate the resource constraints to senior management, requesting additional budget and personnel to address both the marketing dashboard and the compliance enhancements concurrently and with full scope. Option C. Prioritize the immediate implementation of the marketing department's visualization dashboard, deferring the legal and compliance team's requests to a subsequent project phase after the dashboard is live and initial user adoption is confirmed. Option D. Initiate a phased approach, first implementing the critical enhancements to content retention policies and audit log capabilities to meet regulatory requirements, and then allocating remaining resources to develop a scaled-down version of the visualization dashboard. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the immediate implementation of the marketing department's visualization dashboard, deferring the legal and compliance team's requests to a subsequent project phase after the dashboard is live and initial user adoption is confirmed. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, where differing stakeholder priorities can lead to conflicting requirements. The challenge lies in balancing immediate business needs with long-term strategic goals and regulatory compliance, especially when resources are constrained. A failure to properly adjudicate these conflicts can result in a solution that is either non-compliant, inefficient, or fails to meet critical business objectives, leading to project delays, increased costs, and potential legal repercussions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and long-term strategic alignment above immediate, potentially short-sighted business demands. In the context of IBM Content Manager V8, 5 Solution Designer, this means adhering to the principles of information governance, data integrity, and auditability as mandated by relevant regulations. Assuming a U.S. jurisdiction for this exam, this would align with frameworks like HIPAA for healthcare, SOX for financial services, or general data privacy regulations like GDPR, if applicable to the data being managed, though the exam itself is U.S.-centric. A solution designer must ensure that any proposed design can demonstrably meet these compliance requirements. Prioritizing a feature that enhances audit trails and retention policies, even if it delays a less critical business function, represents best professional practice because it safeguards the organization against legal penalties, reputational damage, and ensures the long-term viability and trustworthiness of the content management system. This aligns with the ethical obligation to design solutions that are secure, compliant, and robust. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that prioritizes the immediate business request for a new reporting dashboard without fully assessing its impact on existing retention policies or audit capabilities, is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to regulatory violations if the dashboard inadvertently exposes or manipulates data in a way that contravenes retention schedules or audit trails, potentially violating regulations like SOX or HIPAA. Another incorrect approach would be to defer the decision on the conflicting requirements to a later phase without a clear plan for resolution. This procrastination can lead to scope creep, increased development costs, and a higher risk of non-compliance as the system evolves without a cohesive design strategy. It demonstrates a lack of proactive problem-solving and can result in a fragmented or insecure solution. Finally, an approach that dismisses the regulatory concerns as secondary to business expediency is a direct ethical and professional failure. It shows a disregard for legal obligations and the potential harm to the organization and its stakeholders. This can lead to severe legal penalties and a breakdown of trust. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all stakeholder requirements, followed by a rigorous assessment of each requirement against regulatory mandates, technical feasibility, and strategic objectives. When conflicts arise, a structured prioritization process is essential. This process should involve 1. Identifying and documenting all requirements and their potential impacts. 2. Assessing each requirement against compliance frameworks and organizational policies. 3. Evaluating the strategic value and urgency of each requirement. 4. Facilitating discussions with stakeholders to find common ground or acceptable trade-offs. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen path. In cases of irreconcilable conflict between business needs and regulatory compliance, compliance must always take precedence. Question 17. System analysis indicates that a client in the financial services sector requires an IBM Content Manager V8 5 solution to manage sensitive customer documents. The client has expressed a desire to implement a new feature that allows for rapid document retrieval and sharing among authorized personnel, but has not explicitly detailed how this feature should align with specific U.S. financial regulations, such as those enforced by the SEC or FINRA. Which approach best ensures the solution's compliance and long-term viability? Option A. Focus on the technical architecture that supports the fastest possible document retrieval, and then explore if existing IBM Content Manager V8 5 features can be retrofitted to address any identified regulatory gaps after the core functionality is operational. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of applicable U.S. financial regulations, e.g., SEC Rule 17a-4, FINRA rules, to understand specific requirements for record retention, audit trails, and access controls, and then design the rapid retrieval and sharing feature to explicitly meet these mandates. Option C. Prioritize the immediate implementation of the rapid retrieval and sharing feature to meet the client's stated desire for speed, deferring detailed regulatory compliance checks to a later phase of the project. Option D. Design and implement the rapid retrieval and sharing feature based on common best practices for content management, assuming that standard security protocols will inherently satisfy regulatory requirements. Correct answer is D. Design and implement the rapid retrieval and sharing feature based on common best practices for content management, assuming that standard security protocols will inherently satisfy regulatory requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the immediate need for a functional system with the long-term implications of data integrity and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in making a decision that appears expedient but could lead to significant future risks. Careful judgment is required to foresee potential issues that are not immediately apparent. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the client's regulatory obligations before committing to a specific technical solution. IBM Content Manager V8.5, like any enterprise content management system, has capabilities that can be configured to meet various compliance requirements. However, the specific configuration and design choices are dictated by the applicable regulations. Without this foundational understanding, any proposed solution risks being non-compliant, leading to potential fines, reputational damage, and the need for costly remediation. Adhering to the client's stated regulatory framework, which, for this exam, is assumed to be US-based, given the context of IBM solutions often being deployed in such environments, is paramount. This involves understanding regulations like HIPAA for healthcare, SOX for financial services, or SEC rules for financial data, and how they translate into content management requirements such as retention policies, audit trails, and access controls. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical feasibility of integrating a new feature without considering its impact on existing compliance controls is professionally unacceptable. This would represent a failure to uphold the duty of care to the client, potentially leading to regulatory violations. For instance, if the client is in a regulated industry, implementing a feature that bypasses or weakens established audit trails would be a direct violation of regulations requiring comprehensive record-keeping and accountability. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes speed of delivery over thoroughness, risks overlooking critical security or privacy requirements mandated by law. This could result in data breaches or unauthorized access, which carry severe legal and financial penalties. A third incorrect approach, which assumes a generic compliance standard without verifying the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the client's industry and location, is also a failure. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can lead to a solution that is technically sound but legally deficient. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a structured decision-making process. First, clearly define the problem and the desired outcome. Second, identify all relevant constraints, including technical, business, and, crucially, regulatory requirements. Third, gather information about the applicable regulatory framework. This may involve consulting with the client's legal or compliance departments. Fourth, brainstorm potential solutions, evaluating each against the identified constraints. Fifth, select the solution that best meets all requirements, with a strong emphasis on compliance. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen approach, ensuring transparency and accountability. Question 18. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a financial services firm requires an IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution to store and manage client account documentation, with a critical need for comprehensive audit trails to comply with SEC Rule 17A4. The solution must ensure that all changes to documents are recorded and that previous versions are retrievable. Which of the following design approaches best satisfies these requirements while maintaining reasonable system performance? Option A. Configure IBM Content Manager to enable full versioning for all document types and implement a robust metadata strategy to capture essential audit information such as user, timestamp, and action type for each version. Option B. Implement a separate, custom database to store all audit log information, manually linking entries to documents within IBM Content Manager. Option C. Disable document versioning in IBM Content Manager to maximize system performance and rely on application-level logging for audit purposes. Option D. Utilize IBM Content Manager's basic document storage without versioning and implement a complex file system backup strategy to retain historical data. The correct answer is A. Configure IBM Content Manager to enable full versioning for all document types and implement a robust metadata strategy to capture essential audit information such as user, timestamp, and action type for each version. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the need for robust data integrity and auditability with the practicalities of system performance and user accessibility. The core tension lies between the strict requirements for immutability and versioning inherent in many regulatory frameworks for financial data, and the potential performance overhead associated with frequent, granular updates and extensive audit trails. A solution designer must navigate these competing demands, ensuring compliance without rendering the system unusable or prohibitively expensive. The professional challenge is to identify a design that meets the spirit and letter of the regulations while remaining practical and efficient. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a content management solution that leverages IBM Content Manager's inherent versioning capabilities, coupled with a carefully designed metadata schema that captures essential audit information e.g., user, timestamp, action type, represents best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the regulatory requirement for tracking changes and maintaining historical records. By utilizing the system's built-in features, the solution avoids custom, potentially brittle, and less maintainable workarounds. The metadata approach ensures that audit information is directly associated with the content, facilitating efficient retrieval and verification during audits. This aligns with the principles of data integrity and accountability mandated by financial regulations, ensuring that all modifications are traceable and auditable. Incorrect approaches analysis. Disabling versioning to improve performance would be a significant regulatory failure. Many financial regulations, such as those governing record keeping and audit trails, explicitly require the retention of previous versions of documents and the ability to reconstruct historical states. Disabling versioning directly violates this requirement, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance and potentially leading to severe penalties. Implementing a separate custom database for audit logs without a clear, automated link to the content versions in IBM Content Manager is also professionally unacceptable. This creates a fragmented audit trail, increasing the risk of data discrepancies and making it difficult to definitively link audit events to specific content versions. During an audit, proving the integrity and completeness of such a system would be exceptionally challenging, and it could be argued that the audit trail is not sufficiently robust or reliable. Relying solely on application-level logging, without leveraging the content management system's versioning and metadata features, would also be a failure. While application logs can provide valuable operational insights, they are typically not designed to provide the immutable, version-specific audit trail required by financial regulations. This approach would likely be deemed insufficient by regulators, as it doesn't guarantee the integrity of the content itself or its historical states. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance as a foundational requirement. This involves thoroughly understanding the specific regulations applicable to the industry and jurisdiction, in this case, implied U.S. financial regulations. The framework should then involve evaluating design choices against these requirements, considering not only functionality, but also auditability, data integrity, and long-term maintainability. A key step is to leverage the inherent capabilities of the chosen platform, IBM Content Manager, before resorting to custom solutions. This ensures a more robust, integrated, and supportable design. Finally, a risk-based approach should be used, where potential deviations from strict compliance are thoroughly assessed for their impact and mitigated accordingly, with a clear preference for designs that inherently meet regulatory demands. Question 19. Assessment of the most appropriate decision-making framework for designing an IBM Content Manager v8.5 solution when faced with potentially conflicting requirements between strict regulatory data retention mandates and the desire for enhanced system performance and user accessibility, considering only the regulatory framework applicable to the client's industry within the United States. Option A. Develop a solution based on general content management best practices, without a detailed analysis of specific U.S. regulatory requirements, to ensure a modern and efficient system. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of advanced performance optimization features and user-friendly interfaces, assuming that regulatory compliance can be addressed through ad hoc adjustments and periodic audits. Option C. Focus on implementing a flexible system architecture that allows for future modifications, deferring detailed regulatory compliance considerations until after the initial system deployment to expedite the project timeline. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of all applicable U.S. federal and state regulations pertaining to data retention, auditability, and disposition, and design the IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution to directly fulfill these mandates, using its native features for compliance. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the implementation of advanced performance optimization features and user-friendly interfaces, assuming that regulatory compliance can be addressed through ad hoc adjustments and periodic audits. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the need for robust data integrity and auditability with the practical demands of system performance and user accessibility. The solution designer must navigate potential conflicts between strict adherence to regulatory requirements for record retention and the desire for a more agile and responsive system. The professional challenge lies in interpreting the specific regulatory framework, understanding its implications for content lifecycle management, and translating those requirements into a technically sound and cost-effective solution without compromising compliance. The inherent tension between preservation and usability requires careful judgment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding and direct application of the specified regulatory framework. This involves identifying all relevant mandates concerning data retention periods, immutability requirements, audit trails, and disposition rules. By mapping these directly to IBM Content Manager V8.5 features and configurations, the designer ensures that the solution not only meets but exceeds compliance obligations. This approach represents best professional practice because it is grounded in the explicit legal and regulatory landscape governing the client's industry and operations. It mitigates risk by ensuring that the system is designed from the outset to be compliant, avoiding costly remediation efforts later. Adherence to the regulatory framework is paramount for avoiding legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to prioritize system performance and user experience above all else, assuming that regulatory requirements can be retrofitted or are less critical. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for legal obligations, potentially exposing the organization to severe penalties for non-compliance. Such an approach could lead to the accidental or intentional deletion of records before their mandated retention period, compromising auditability and creating legal liabilities. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt a best-guess interpretation of the regulatory framework without seeking clarification or expert consultation. This can lead to misinterpretations of retention periods, disposition rules, or audit requirements, resulting in a non-compliant solution. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due diligence and professional responsibility in ensuring compliance. A third incorrect approach would be to implement a solution based on general industry best practices for content management without specifically validating them against the client's applicable regulatory framework. While general best practices are valuable, they are not a substitute for specific legal mandates. This approach risks overlooking unique or stringent requirements imposed by the governing regulations, leading to a solution that is technically sound but legally deficient. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the governing regulatory landscape. This involves 1. Regulatory identification and interpretation. Clearly identify all applicable regulations and seek expert legal counsel if interpretation is ambiguous. 2. Requirements mapping. Translate regulatory mandates into specific functional and non-functional requirements for the content management system. 3. Solution design and configuration. Design the IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution to directly address these mapped requirements, leveraging its features for retention, audit, and disposition. 4. Validation and testing. Rigorously test the solution to ensure it meets all compliance objectives. 5. Ongoing monitoring and review. Establish processes for continuous monitoring and periodic review to adapt to any changes in regulations or business needs. Question 20. Comparative studies suggest that the thoroughness of an impact assessment directly correlates with the successful integration of new content management functionalities. When designing an IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution that involves migrating a large volume of legacy documents and introducing new metadata schemas. Which approach to impact assessment is most critical for ensuring a smooth transition and mitigating unforeseen risks? Option A. Rely on the expertise of the migration team to identify potential impacts, assuming that their experience with similar projects will cover all necessary considerations without formal documentation or broad stakeholder consultation. Option B. Conduct a phased impact assessment, starting with a high-level review of potential disruptions to core business processes and data integrity, followed by detailed assessments of specific components like the migration process, metadata mapping, and user access controls as the design evolves. Option C. Focus the impact assessment exclusively on the functional requirements of the new metadata schemas, assuming that legacy document migration will proceed without significant complications or downstream effects on existing systems. Option D. Prioritize the impact assessment on the technical feasibility of the migration and the performance implications of the new metadata schemas, deferring detailed analysis of business process changes until after the initial implementation. The correct answer is B. Conduct a phased impact assessment, starting with a high-level review of potential disruptions to core business processes and data integrity, followed by detailed assessments of specific components like the migration process, metadata mapping, and user access controls as the design evolves. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in content management solution design, balancing the need for robust impact assessment with the practical constraints of project timelines and resource availability. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the assessment is thorough enough to identify all significant risks and dependencies without becoming a bottleneck that delays critical project phases. Careful judgment is required to prioritize assessment activities and determine the appropriate level of detail for different components of the solution. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of responsible system design and implementation. A comprehensive impact assessment, even when iterative, ensures that all potential consequences of changes to the IBM Content Manager V8.5 solution are understood. This includes evaluating the effects on existing business processes, data integrity, system performance, security, and user experience. By involving stakeholders and documenting findings, the solution designer fosters transparency and facilitates informed decision-making, thereby mitigating risks and ensuring compliance with relevant, albeit unspecified in this context, industry best practices for data governance and system change management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate functional requirements without considering broader system and business impacts represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Risks introducing unforeseen problems, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities that could have severe consequences, including potential breaches of data privacy regulations or non-compliance with internal data retention policies. Another incorrect approach that relies on assumptions without validation is equally problematic. This can lead to misinterpretations of system behavior or user needs, resulting in a solution that is ineffective, inefficient, or even detrimental to the organization. Such a failure to conduct due diligence can also lead to reputational damage and financial penalties if compliance failures are discovered. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a phased approach to impact assessment. Begin with a high-level assessment to identify major areas of concern and potential risks. Then, progressively refine the assessment as more detailed design information becomes available. Crucially, engage relevant stakeholders, including business users, IT operations, and compliance officers, throughout the process to gather diverse perspectives and validate findings. Document all assumptions, identified impacts, and proposed mitigation strategies. This iterative and collaborative approach ensures that the impact assessment remains a valuable tool for risk management and informed decision-making, rather than a bureaucratic hurdle.